Okay, let's talk about sketching organic architecture. So why do we need to know this? Well, turns out the day-to-day modernist visual language, modernist-inspired visual language, could get boring from time to time. So it's definitely your advantage to experiment with new types of shapes. And yeah, we're not talking especially about parametric design, but rather about the sort of ideas and concepts you could get by starting off from a box type of an approach, and then taking it one step further and adding a lot of curves and literally transforming everything, right? So these drawings aren't going to be of buildings designed by mathematical calculus or however the parametric system works, but they will be based on architectural composition, architectural elements such as scale, contrast, texture, and obviously our artistic approach. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples. I've done a couple of sketches. This is my little sketch pad. It's a A5 sketch pad, right? So here is an example, right? Quick 20-30 minute sketch. Okay, so we got this weird shape here with a couple of rounded type of entourage shrubs type of things, right? And a bit of context. Okay. Here we've got again another 20-minute sketch, 15-20 minutes. I don't remember how much time it took, but it's obviously a very quick sketch. We've got this very strong horizontal going this way, okay? And then obviously we will add some verticals on this part here. And yeah, to add a bit of scale, we got some cars this way. Because obviously objects like this can be huge or small or whatever they can be, okay? Okay, let's move on. Some examples of breaking boxes, right, by rhythms. Okay, so we're going as far as possible from the standard box. Okay, then again, more detailed, let's say rectangular, curvilinear, like curvy again shapes, things that basically start off from simple primitives, but still retain their architectural intellectual value, let's say. So they're not way out there. Okay, this is a sketch of, okay, and this is the last example of maybe a composition, okay. It shows a, obviously human scale, right, so these towers are kind of large, they got a bit of entourage around them. Yeah, this is again a sketch that you could take for, and draw for like maybe an hour to get in the amount of detailing you want. But it's safe to say that this level of drawing, went you can just take this level of sketching and scan it through and then color it in Photoshop, and obviously you'll get a very good concept sheet. Okay, so a couple of rules of thumb for drawing and designing organic buildings. So, one thing I learned from one of my tutors really early on, remember, when I was quite young and I was taking the drawing lessons, that this is kind of expensive, okay? The right angle is kind of expensive. This is very expensive, right? So a jagged, let's say Libeskind type of approach, very expensive. And this is extremely expensive, okay? So just to keep this in mind, we don't need to abuse the curved lines too much, okay? Because that will not just cause difficulty, but step by step take our drawing from something that's realistic and intellectually based into something that's way out there. There's a massive difference between the type of architecture you see in computer games and what we do in architecture school. Because the first is just an image. Okay, there's a lot of artists drawing architecture, drawing buildings, but they don't look at it like buildings. You can tell that although they, have perspective, somewhat perspective or whatever, they're not architectural. They're just flat images. Okay, and on the other hand, you can have our design work, which obviously we'll create a volume, and that volume itself is going to be represented through a couple of flat images. Okay, the typical, if you draw something, you'll have a entrance perspective, an aerial perspective, a whatever main hallway perspective, etc. Okay, and the second thing is to never forget that all of our ideas come from an intersection between two things. Literally creativity, okay, and all the creative ideas that pop in, right? We can make a bubble diagram out of this, and what is architecturally relevant. Okay, so the stuff that's literally based in real life. It's buildable. You probably did a couple of designs for school by now, and you had ideas that were just too weird to be intellectually relevant or architecturally relevant. Okay, you need to do a bit of research on this, and we will do that by looking at a couple of references. Okay, let's do a quick Google search on a couple of examples of organic architecture. So, one of my favorite architects, Ian Kaplicki. Let's see. So these are all references. This guy is really cool. A Czech architect. Obviously, you can look at his drawings. Yeah. And again, if you want some intellectual validity to your ideas, it's not just enough to start sketching. You need a bit of referencing. So don't go like, oh yeah, but that's not an original idea. No. It's good. It's a starting point. Let's see. Interesting stuff here. See the image. Yeah, I like this. Kind of looks weird. Let's go on the downloads. Okay. Kind of high tech in a way. Completely. I don't want the drawings. I want the architecture. Okay, look at this bad boy here. I don't know what this is even. It's the Czech library. Really weird, but very interesting at the same time. Oh, and the Lord's Media Center in the Birmingham Selfridges building. Again, this isn't parametric. This looks like it does, because the architect was so good that they took the normal visual language to the next level. So Ian Kaplicki invented, and Future Systems invented, a new type of visual language. Okay, specific for this type of design. See, the Enzo Ferrari Museum here. Yeah, I think I'll go for this. Jazz. Right, let's look at. Okay, now let's look at some references from Zaha Hadid. Design. Architecture. Okay, so again for this futuristic organic look. Oh yeah, I think I sketched this already. Okay, this is good. What else? This yacht, like boat type of thing. It looks interesting. Okay. And again, let's see more futuristic designs. Obviously, to understand something like this, you need to know a section, a floor plan, maybe make a model. Okay, so things that have more, let's say, intellectual value. not just copy an image, you see. That's not enough to understand architecture. Okay, so now let's see some futuristic, organic architecture. Let's see some other concepts. Google is going to be your best friend, organic architecture concepts. Right. So hopefully by organic, everybody understood that I mean futuristic. Let's see futuristic. Okay, so again, these are good designs, but this is a floating building. But I doubt they're very well anchored in real life. They seem kind of out there. It's got a turbine. Let's see. Let's visit this page and see what they're talking about. Oh, it's a Pinterest page. Yeah, Pinterest as well is good with this type of stuff. Okay, so I think we got a couple of references here. And let's start. Oh, look here, this looks like a TIE fighter. Very abstract. Okay, so now let's go and maybe sketch a couple of these buildings and then come up maybe with our own little thing, little design. Look, game design concepts, right? So they basically designs by Jonathan. Yeah, they're not very anchored in real life, but they do look kind of interesting. These might not work for reference material for uni, for studying architecture, but they will get you some good insight into these types of free-flowing shapes. Okay, boom, let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the Selfridges building. We'll draw a small sketch. Start with a thumbnail, obviously, and then go for the passageway and just basically try to get this effect of this specific visual language used in this building, because it's quite unique. Okay, so we got a passageway close to a one-point perspective with a lot of curved lines. We're trying to get the glass hatching and a bit of detailing on the railing. Okay, I'm going for the large drawing right now. So it's basically the same thing as the thumbnail, just that a lot more detailing is required. Okay, that's why we need to go and also do the texture. Right, those aluminium discs, which are very important. Obviously, we don't need to draw all of them, because it's just enough to suggest that this shape has this curvature to it. Okay, so just smaller discs and just making the curvature stand out. This is a sketch, it's not meant to again, you can make this drawing in 2 hours or you can draw it in 15 minutes. We are talking about a concept sketch right now. Right, so these vertical partitions are going to help us all these partitions are going to help us make everything look a bit more realistic. Okay, aluminium discs again. We are probably going to hatch the glass soon. Okay, because we need to get those reflections. Okay, again the curvature, the thick lines, everything. You need to have again people on the horizon line. As you remember, people are very good for giving scale to a perspective. Right. Okay, again a bit of detailing because it needs to look a bit more graphical. A bit of a background, a car shadow from the railing and from the window unit. Again a bit of detailing, and this is getting close to done. A bit more contrast and this is it. Okay. Now let's start with another organic design. This is an aerial perspective, so it's going to look very out of scale, let's say. So we will probably need to add elements that make it relatable, okay? Like planes, because this is actually right, like a hangar sort of thing. Okay, so we got those windows offering a little bit of a rhythm, because it's not enough just to draw some weird shapes. And now let's go for the large drawing.
we've got a top-down ellipse and this shape that's going in perspective. Okay, obviously a bit of detailing here. Jumped forward, you can see the people, right? They're like the little dots that give a bit of scale to all this drawing. And obviously these curvatures are going to have a bit of a gradient, okay, because it's just not enough to basically just throw in a surface there. It needs to be shiny, it needs to look like it's made out of a different technology. Now we will go for a bit of detailing on the foreground and a bit of detailing on the planes. Okay, just a bit of detailing and a cast shadow should be enough for this level of drawing. Again, a bit of context. And now we will draw the third building. Again with a little thumbnail first. So it's this kind of crazy composition with different weird volumes surrounded by rectangular boxes. Okay, so this is again a top-down perspective. It's a fairly unrealistic design, let's say. But again, we're looking for a futuristic design, so that doesn't need to be 100% realistic. It's good to be like 80-20, 80% weird and original, and 20% rectangular and predictable. Again, much of this will. Much of the ideas are going to stand out from our drawing, so there's no point in making a plan. Okay, we will obviously this thumbnail is as close as to a plan as you can make, but yeah, there's no point in making a plan. We will figure things out as we move along. Okay, so again, detailing. This is a bit zoomed in, so we're focusing on the weird volumes. Right, you can tell which ones we're talking about. You can see them on the thumbnail sketch. This is an A4 sketch, so these work very well. If you go, you scan them, you add them in Photoshop, and then you can color on top of them, or you can just leave them like this, and they look really well as mixed media. A bit of obviously of detailing, of thicker lines, so you get to focus on the important elements, and again the people in the foreground. A bit of scale, okay, because you know, futuristic architecture does kind of lack that scale factor. Okay, obviously we'll need to add a bit more clarity to all of this. Okay, clarity is always very important, and a bit of shadows, because again, all these drawings look good with cast shadows. This is a reflective material in the foreground. That's why it has that kind of hatching, which isn't a particular shadow hatching. Now these are volume shadows. Okay, and these are all our three drawings. Let's combine them into something. So I've got three ideas from each of the plan from our perspective, the entrance from the Selfridges, and the spires from the third image. So we're combining all these three images into a idea, let's say. Again, it's a graphical idea. You need thorough research to get a proper design, but this is a good start. Everybody wants to know how to create ideas just by drawing them. Well, this is a start. Okay, just combine three sketches in a thumbnail, and then soon we'll go for the large A4 sketch. Okay, a bit of contrast, some multiple towers with the spires, with the entrances, the entrance tubes, and with a bit of scale. Okay, so yeah, again, they're surrounded by a bit of we've got a horizontal spire, and everything is surrounded by entourage. Right, we will go now for the large drawing. Let's see. So it's going to definitely be an aerial perspective, a bit of referencing there. Okay, the horizon line should be off the page, somewhere like probably 15 centimeters above our page. Now, just with a very fine construction line, we'll add detailing. This is a weird drawing. This isn't what we do every day, so obviously we can't construct too much of it. constructing is very nice, but sometimes you need to free flow, to be more right-brained. In this case, this is a right-brain drawing. So these are the boxes surrounding our composition, because we do want to make everything look as let's say as rectangular, as realistic as possible. Although it's that element of drawing something that's anchored in real life. So we got this visual language similar to the Gherkin by Norman Foster. Sorry. Okay, so there's these partitions, these curved partitions on the several towers, and we'll connect these towers by passageways, and we've got a horizontal tower which is the entrance. It has a ramp, it's got like 3 little people there, right, so again a bit of scale with the spires and everything else. Okay, all of this is beginning to be quite different. At one point we might need to add a piece of paper on our hatching hand just to avoid some smudging. More context, okay, in line drawing terms. We will soon add those. We need to basically mark the intersection between the passageways and the spires, right? So we'll add large windows there. That's a modernist design trick. When you're intersecting 2 volumes, mark that intersection with a part that's made of glass. You'll see that a lot of people try to draw these things and they look not very architectural, not very relevant from an architectural standpoint. That's because they don't understand that, right? Somebody that's not an architect can't do this, okay? Okay, that's the entranceway. We've got a little triangle. Okay, let's do more of the spires thing. Okay, a weird looking building in aerial perspective again. Right. So we will need to obviously add hatching and materials to this, make these spires look more volumetric because they are, cylinders, right? So let's add a bit more glass. Okay, really good. And add some detailing, thicken some lines to get a bit more clarity. Again, glass needs to be darker, so you add contrast. Again, we're drawing what we know that looks good. Glass could be many ways, but we will draw it like it's darker, so you get more contrast. We will soon do some reflections on these towers. Okay, the foreground again. So got a bit of context. So these are reflections. These are curved reflections on the spires, right? We will learn that when we go for these type of round objects. That's more close to product design type of stuff, right? Where you're doing like an aluminium cylinder. Okay, so thickening the foreground, thickening the contrast, adding more contrast, to the line drawing, adding a line hierarchy, so the more important lines are thicker, right? We're adding also a background, so like, sorry, not a background, like a frame around our buildings. And surprise, it's paper in the hand. It's made out of the silhouette of these surrounding box type buildings. Okay, good. Now a bit more line drawing. Okay, we need to add that detailing that we lost after hatching. All good. Now we need to get those blurry reflections. Right. And this needs to look a bit more like it's they look like gherkins. Well, obviously, you might when you're drawing, you might get some optical illusions from time to time. Don't worry about it, you'll correct it later. Right, so these passageways are kind of darker and they hang. You can see that they are like those cable things. Okay, a bit more contrast for the reflections. Okay, and now let's add a bit more thickening of the lines and some background, and foreground. Foreground means in this case cast shadows and a bit of texturing. That platform obviously is floating, so that's why it's got like a shadow next to it. Okay, a bit of grey there to get a bit of the foreground, and I'm waiting for the texture in the foreground as well. The background is going to be simple hatching. Right, it takes about probably 10 minutes to do, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, closer, right? Okay, textures in the foreground. Okay. Also, keep in mind that rhythms help a lot when it comes to adding detailing, because it gives like perspective depth, and we can also add a bit of detailing on the boxes which are in front, so they look more like buildings, right, with windows and stuff, not just simple boxes. A reflection will work really well, but we're good without one. Okay. Again, the background needs to stand out a bit, so we got a clear line, and we're getting closer to the end for this drawing. A bit of a glass dome over there with a reflection. Okay. Contrast, transparency, volumetric depth. This is the kind of stuff which will help you get ideas going. Sometimes it doesn't really need to make sense, like these dots, but they just look good. Okay, so this is the drawing.